Month of November, I decided to take a break from the regular scheduled programming and turned my attention to indie games instead. Last video, I talked about a few of the games that I played when I was younger, so for this video, I wanted to focus on some of my current favorite indie games. If you're a regular on my channel, you know that I love to spoil the crap out of everything! These indie game videos are going to be pretty much spoiler-free because I want you guys to want to go play the games, and I'm not trying to spoil the entire thing for you. So for real, let's get talking about some games! If I was going to talk about indie games at all, I absolutely had to kick off the video with the Strangemen series. It consists of 4 games, each featuring a different man that typically acts as the game's antagonist. Each game, while taking place in the same universe, features a different protagonist and a very different vibe and story depending on which game it is. The Crooked Man is the first game in the series and features everyman David Hoover, who recently moved into a new apartment for a change of pace. His new apartment appears to be haunted, so David sets off on a quest to find the previous tenant in order to get to the bottom of the strange goings-ons. The game has a very large focus on mental health, focusing on depression and suicidal thoughts that eventually lead to suicide. Despite this, and the fact that it is a horror game, The Crooked Man keeps a very positive feel to it throughout the game. The way it deals with the themes it presents are realistic, but also thoughtful and thought-provoking. I played through this game for the first time when I myself was struggling through a lot of the feelings David had, and seeing his progression as a character was very cathartic. And he remains a character I look to when I'm having a hard time, even to this day. The Sandman is the second game in the series and is almost a complete 180 from the first game. Our main character is schoolgirl Sophie, who is an insomniac. When the entire town she lives in is put to sleep and time is stopped, Sophie travels to the fairy world to meet with the Sandman to get him to wake everyone up. The game, while it also deals with issues like bullying, anxiety, and issues with familial relationships, is a lot more silly and kind of whimsical. It's not as scary as its predecessor, for sure. The Boogeyman is the third game in the series, and if we're not letting nostalgia talk, it's probably my favorite. The game follows cold detective Keith Baring, whose wife goes missing while they're on vacation to an old castle. Keith spends the whole game pursuing the Boogeyman in order to get to his wife. Sophie and David also make an appearance in this game, and through them, we're able to get even more insight into Keith as a character and what's actually going on in the story. The Boogeyman is definitely more of a detective thriller case than I would really classify it as more of like a paranormal horror like The Crooked Man is. Also, The Boogeyman is one of those games that I absolutely have to 100% every single time I play it because each of the Strangemen series games features multiple endings, and The Boogeyman has all of its endings are really good, so I have to watch all of them every time. But I've recorded them all now, so hopefully I don't need to do that ever again, because it's actually a little bit of a time investment, especially if you mess up your saves, like I did. The Hangman is the last game in the series, and it came out all the way back in 2017, and oh my god, that makes me feel a little old. The Hangman follows William Morton, a high school student who ran away from home. While seeking shelter in an abandoned building in the woods, he gets separated from his friend Pop and finds himself in the middle of a huge mystery on his search to find his friend. This game, like The Boogeyman, features characters from previous installments. The Strangemen series as a whole does a really cool thing with all the parallels they draw between characters and themes and how they contrast those themes against other games in the series. I don't want to go too in detail into that so as to not get into spoiler territory, but it's one of the things that I really, really like about the series. Like Eve, Mad Father, and The Witch's House, the Strangemen series is all available on VG Person's website, which will be linked in the description, as well as on Steam. Each game is roughly 3 hours or so to get the good ending, so they're not super duper high commitment. I highly recommend this series to anyone who will listen to me. And with that, I come to Oneshot. If you've been subscribed to my channel since the audiobook days, then you might know I did a Let's Play of Oneshot before I realized that I'm way more entertaining when I have a pre-written script. Oneshot was a game that my younger brother recommended I played. It falls around 10 hours or so, maybe 15 if you're also playing the Solstice DLC. The game follows cat child Nico, who finds themselves in a strange, dying world. Nico is greeted as the Messiah and is given the task of returning the sun, aka the light bulb that Nico found in the house they woke up in, back so that they can save the world. Oneshot has to be one of the most creative games I've ever played in terms of the way it develops the bond between the player and Nico, and the way it presents puzzles. The story is a 10 out of 10 solely because of how much the game makes you care for the characters in the world, in particular Nico themselves. The Solstice DLC is an amazing addition to the base game and is also incredibly good story-wise. It made me tear up quite a number of times while playing it, and even though it's been well over 6 months since I've played Oneshot, I still find myself thinking about it from time to time. Oneshot is available on Steam, and it is another game I really recommend you try out. And finally, that brings me to the last game I wanted to cover in this video, Omori. Now, unlike Oneshot and the Strangemen series, which I have played in the past and consider to be my favorite games, Omori is a game I specifically played for content. My brother recommended that I played it months and months ago, however, due to the content warnings on the game and my brother's own warnings about the content, I decided to put it off until I was in a good place mentally, and boy am I glad I did that. On the surface, Omori appears to be a pretty cheerful game with bright colors and an overarching theme of friendship. The game has a fun turn-based combat system that relies on different skills unique to each party member and different follow-up attacks. Similarly, the exploration system also utilizes different party members in a tag system that allows you to work your way through the world. While everything about Omori is good, the characters, music, side quests, and pacing, except for Humphrey, we hate him, the best thing about Omori has to be its story. My brother told me upon starting the game that Omori's story is one you would think about a long time after playing the game, and I honestly couldn't have put that sentiment better myself. The game slowly builds on itself, introducing the mystery that surrounds the game and our characters in a way that leaves the player understanding what's currently going on, while still giving us an unending amount of questions on what's actually going on. This is especially true for the last 5 hours of the game. Like I said earlier, Omori deals with a lot of heavy topics and definitely falls into the psychological horror genre. Honestly, the best way I can think to describe Omori is messed up in the best possible way. The game isn't too long, falling at about 20 hours or so if you're going for the good ending. Omori, like Oneshot, is available on Steam for an amount of money that I no longer remember. So yeah. These are some of my favorite indie games. If you played them, feel free to let me know your thoughts on them. If you haven't, then feel free to add them to your backlog. And with that, I bid you good night. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.